The raised voices from the boardroom were a distant thunder. Sophia stood in the epicenter of the sudden quiet, her hands still tingling where his lips had been. "Wait for me." The command was a lifeline and a chain. Welcome to part 2 of Who Got You That Bracelet? If you're just joining, part 1 is linked below. Subscribe and stay with the story. Let's dive back in. She could leave. The path to the elevator, to a normal life, was clear. Instead, she walked to the window he always haunted, placing her palms on the cool glass where his had so often rested. Below, Seoul moved like an intricate clockwork. His kingdom. And now, in some irrevocable way, hers. Time stretched. The distant argument subsided into a low, tense murmur. After an hour, the boardroom doors down the hall opened with a sharp sound. Booted footsteps, multiple pairs, marched toward the elevator bank. A voice, thick with barely suppressed rage, growled in Korean, "This isn't settled, Park." Jungwook's reply was ice calm. "It is. The shipment stays routed through my ports. Your concession is my patience. Don't exhaust it." The elevator dinged, then descended. Silence flooded back. Sophia didn't turn when his office door opened. She felt him enter, felt the energy in the room shift from cold tension to a charged, weary heat. She heard the soft rustle of his jacket being discarded, the quiet click of a decanter. They wanted a 15% cut of the Hong Kong route. His voice came from behind her, tired and matter-of-fact. In exchange for protection from problems they would have created. She finally turned. He stood by the sidebar, pouring a single measure of whiskey, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his collar loosened. The elegant predator was gone, replaced by a man who had just finished wielding a blunt instrument. There was a new, faint abrasion on his knuckles. "And what was their concession?" she asked, her voice steady. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. He appreciated that she asked for the term, not the violence. Their continued operational independence. For now. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving her. "You waited. You told me to. I've told you many things. You've only recently started listening." He set the glass down and approached her. The fatigue in his posture was palpable, but his gaze was acutely focused. "Regret is a luxury. Do you have any?" The question was a direct hit to the foundation of their new, fragile world. She considered it, looking past him to the city. "No," she said, the truth solid within her. "Fear, yes, but not regret." He reached her, stopping close enough that she could see the flecks of darker brown in his near-black eyes. "The fear I can live with. I live with it every day." He lifted a hand, this time with no hesitation, and cupped her face. His touch was warm, grounding. "The man from the gala. Alexander. His dossier is incomplete. I stopped the inquiry." It was a monumental concession, offered quietly. The first proof of his promise to try. "Thank you," she whispered. He shook his head slowly, his thumb stroking her cheek. "Don't thank me. It is a weakness, and in my world, a weakness shown is a wound opened. I am making us vulnerable. For you." The confession was more intimate than a kiss. He was showing her the cost. "Then I'll have to be your strength," she said, placing her hand over his. His eyes darkened with a potent mix of awe and possession. He leaned in, his breath a warm caress against her lips. "You already are." The kiss, when it came, was not a storm, but a claiming. Slow, deliberate, and devastatingly deep. It was the seal on their surrender, the physical manifestation of all the silent years and tumultuous days. It held his jealousy, his devotion, his terrifying love, and her brave, answering fire. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathless, the world narrowed to this single point of contact. "The terms change now," he murmured, his forehead against hers. "You don't work for me anymore. You work with me. You see everything. You know everything. There is no part of my life, light or dark, that is closed to you." He pulled back to look at her, his expression fiercely serious. "But that door, once opened, has no lock. You can never unknow what you will see." She understood. This was the final step. To move from the assistant's desk outside to the seat beside his throne, in the inner sanctum where the real business was done. "I'm not afraid of the truth," she said. "I know," he replied, a trace of his old, dangerous smile returning. "That is why you are the only one who could ever sit there." He took her hand and led her not out of the office, but toward the blank, wood-paneled wall behind his desk. With a faint pressure from his thumb on a hidden sensor, a seam appeared, and a section of the wall slid silently open, revealing a private elevator. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," he said, leading her inside. The doors closed. My home, not as an employee following her boss, but as Sophia, walking into the world of Jungwook. The elevator descended to the private underground garage where his most secure car waited. The drive was silent, his hand holding hers the entire way, as if afraid she'd vanish. They arrived not at a corporate penthouse, but at a secluded, modernist compound nestled in the forested hills, surrounded by high walls and a silent, unseen security detail. It was not just a house, it was a fortress. His fortress. He led her inside, through spaces that were beautiful but felt unlived in, until they reached a wall of glass overlooking a private, moonlit garden. He turned to her, the vulnerability back in his eyes. "This is the silence I spoke of," he said quietly. "This is where I return when the world is too much. It has never felt like a refuge, only an emptiness." He looked at her, his heart in his eyes. Until now. He was giving her the final key, not to his business, but to his solitude. Sophia looked from the stark, beautiful loneliness of the house to the even starker need in the man before her. She reached up and touched his face, her answer clear in her touch. A slow smile, one of pure, unguarded relief, transformed his features. He leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that promised a future as intricate and dangerous as their past. From the shadowed entrance hall, Kwon observed the embrace for a brief moment before melting soundlessly back into the darkness. A small, secure tablet in his hand displayed a single, newly active security clearance. Sophia Davis, unrestricted access. Status, protected. On the screen, a final, encrypted alert flashed. It was a report on the dismissed aide, Alexander, now safely en route to a new posting in Oslo. The file was marked with a single, definitive stamp. Case closed, BY order of Park Hye-ryung. The jealous Mafia boss had finally gained control. Not over his assistant, but over himself. And in doing so, he had won the only thing that had ever truly eluded him. But in the shadows of his world, where rivals watched and alliances were paper-thin, a new question was already forming. A question that would soon reach their guarded gates. What happens when the Park Hye-ryung's greatest strength becomes his most obvious vulnerability? The morning light in the fortress was different. It didn't stream, it filtered, softened by the layered security glass and the surrounding forest. Sophia woke in a bed that was vast and unfamiliar, the scent of sandalwood and Jungwook on the sheets beside her. His arm was a heavy, possessive weight around her waist, his breathing even in sleep. In the quiet, she saw the man stripped bare of his power, the faint scar on his shoulder, the peaceful slackness of his jaw. Her heart ached with a terrifying tenderness. She slipped out from under his arm. Wrapping herself in a robe from a discreet closet already stocked with items in her size, she padded silently across the cool floor to the wall of glass. The private garden was a masterpiece of controlled wilderness. And there, by a koi pond, stood Kwon. He wasn't looking at the fish. His eyes were scanning the tree line, his posture coiled even in stillness. This was her new world. Beauty perpetually guarded. "You are awake early, Ms. Davis." She didn't startle. Jungwook's voice, sleep-roughened, came from behind her. He stood in the doorway to the bedroom, wearing only black trousers, his hair mussed, his gaze warm but already assessing, checking her, then checking the garden beyond, mirroring Kwon's vigilance. "It's a lot to get used to," she said softly. He came to stand beside her, his bare arm brushing hers. "The silence is less loud with you in it," he murmured, his eyes on the garden. Then, his tone shifted, seamlessly blending the personal with the professional. Today, you begin. I have a meeting at 10 with the bankers from Zurich. You will sit in. What's my role? Your role is to listen. To learn the language they use when they think no one understands the subtext. And, he turned to her, tucking a curl behind her ear, to be the calm in the room. My calm. After a breakfast served by a silent, efficient staff, they dressed. He in a sharp, dark suit. She chose a tailored dress in charcoal gray, armor for a new battlefield. They took the private elevator down to the garage. The drive to the city was different. He held her hand, but his other hand scrolled through secure reports on a tablet, his brow furrowed. At the office, the energy had shifted. The staff's bows were deeper, their glances at Sophia now tinged with a new, wary respect. She no longer went to her old desk. Jungwook led her into his inner office and gestured to a new, sleek workstation that had been installed directly opposite his, facing him. A terminal glowed softly. Your access is live, he said. The systems will respond to your biometrics. Start with the Zurich portfolio. The files are in the secure server, labeled Helvetia. She sat, the leather chair sighing beneath her. She pressed her thumb to the scanner. The screen awoke, not with her old email interface, but with a streamlined, powerful dashboard. Financial streams, security feeds, encrypted comms. It was the central nervous system of his empire. For an hour, she immersed herself, cross-referencing the Helvetia files with public records and previous deal memos. Her intelligence, once used to manage his schedule, now mapped financial pathways. She found a discrepancy, a holding company mentioned in a clause that didn't appear in any subsidiary ledger. She looked up. He was watching her, a silent question in his eyes. This shell company, she said, turning her screen toward him. Bellerophon Holdings. It's listed as a guarantor on page 43, but it has no assets, no history. It's a ghost. Jungwook's expression didn't change, but a fierce pride ignited in his gaze. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. And why would our Swiss friends insert a ghost into a contract? To create a backdoor, she answered, the logic clicking into place. A liability that doesn't exist, which could later be activated or sold to a third party to claim a default. The dangerous smile she knew so well touched his lips. Exactly. A poison pill wrapped in polite legalese. He stood, straightening his cufflinks. You have just earned your seat at the table 10 times over. Remember this feeling, Sophia. This is the work. This is how we protect what is ours. The intercom buzzed. Sir, the Zurich delegation has arrived. He buttoned his suit jacket, his eyes hardening into the Paquieriang's mask. Let's go. As they walked toward the boardroom, side by side, Sophia felt a surge of purpose. She was no longer on the periphery. She was in the war room. The boardroom was all cold light and polished stone. 3 impeccably dressed bankers stood. Introductions were made. Sophia took her seat beside Jungwook, not behind him. The lead banker, a man named Klaus, did a double-take, his eyes flicking between her and Jungwook with poorly concealed surprise. The meeting began, a dense thicket of figures and percentages. Sophia listened, her eyes on Klaus. She saw the moment his facade of bland courtesy slipped. When Jungwook pushed on the collateral schedule, Klaus's fingers tightened minutely around his pen. His eyes, just for a second, darted to his junior associate. Jungwook saw it too. He leaned back, his voice deceptively casual. Klaus. A question, unrelated to the numbers. This Bellerophon Holdings. A curious name. The mythic hero who slayed monsters. What monster, exactly, is it meant to slay in our agreement? The room froze. Klaus's face went ashen. He hadn't expected the ghost to be seen, let alone named. Before Klaus could stammer a reply, the boardroom door opened. Kwon entered, which he would never do without dire cause. He didn't speak. He simply walked to Jungwook and placed a single, sealed black envelope on the table before him. All eyes were on it. Jungwook picked it up, slit it open with a thumb, and extracted a single photograph. His expression, for a fraction of a second, shattered into pure, unadulterated fury before ice reclaimed it. He slid the photo toward Sophia. It was a picture of her, taken this morning, standing at the glass wall of the fortress in her robe, bathed in the soft morning light. It was taken from the tree line. The message was not written, but screamed from the image. We see her. We can reach her. Your vulnerability is now our weapon. Jung-wook's hand covered hers under the table, his grip crushing. But when he looked at Klaus, his smile was glacial. It seems, Jung-wook said, his voice quiet enough to bend the room's metal. We have more than just ghosts to discuss today. The photograph was a brand, searing a new reality into Sophia's skin. The beautiful, secluded fortress was not a sanctuary. It was a gilded cage whose bars had just been revealed. Under the table, Jung-wook's hand was a vice around hers, the only sign of the tempest raging beneath his calm. He placed the photograph face down, the gesture final. His gaze swept back to Klaus, the banker who had gone from pale to gray. Our negotiation, Jung-wook said, each word a chip of ice, is suspended. You will wait in the holding lounge. Kwon will see to your comfort. It was not a request. Klaus and his associates were ushered out, their financial leverage rendered meaningless in the face of this more intimate threat. When the door shut, the silence was absolute. Jung-wook released her hand and picked up the photograph again. He studied it, his thumb tracing the edge where the morning light had haloed her silhouette. They've been watching the house for weeks, he said, his voice low and analytical. But Sophia heard the razor's edge of self-recrimination. To get this angle, this clarity, it's professional. Not a rival family. This is corporate espionage. An enemy who buys intelligence, not one who spills blood. He looked at her, and the love in his eyes was now tangled with a ferocious, chilling protectiveness. They didn't send a bullet. They sent a message. They are showing me they can touch what I love without ever laying a finger on it. They are attacking my peace. Sophia's mind, trained for logistics and patterns, raced past the initial shock. The timing. They give you this during the Zurich meeting. They wanted you distracted, off balance, to make a costly mistake in the negotiation. A flicker of grim admiration crossed his face. Yes, to weaponize my fear for you in a boardroom. It's elegant and cowardly. He stood, walking to the window, his back to her. This changes nothing about us, Sophia. And it changes everything about how we move. What do we do? We, he emphasized, turning back, do nothing visible. You will not change your routines. You will not look over your shoulder. To react is to show them the message worked. He came back to the table, leaning on it, bringing his face level with hers. But I will find the source. I will find the camera, the operative, the person who paid for it. And I will dismantle them, not with violence, but with ruin. I will bury them in the light, where they think they are safe. It was a different kind of war. A cold war of influence, assets, and legal annihilation. For the rest of the day, a new normal took hold. Sophia worked, her focus on the Helvetia files now a form of defiance. Jung-wook moved in and out of meetings, his phone pressed to his ear, issuing quiet, precise commands. The atmosphere was one of heightened vigilance, not panic. That evening, back at the fortress, he led her not to the bedroom, but to a room she hadn't seen. A sleek, minimalist study lined with books and a single large monitor. He gestured to a pair of chairs. You said you wanted no part of my world closed to you, he said. This is the heart of it. The control room for the legitimate empire. For hours, he showed her. Shell companies, cross-holdings, charity foundations, political donations. It was a map of immense, sanitized power. This, he said, pointing to a web of interconnected nodes on the screen, is my true armor. My respectability. My influence. This is what I will use to protect you. He was letting her inside his mind, his strategy. It was more intimate than any physical touch. Later, as they prepared for bed, he stopped her by the bathroom doorway. His hands came up to frame her face, his touch unbearably gentle. "The fear I feel today," he confessed, his voice raw, "is 1,000 times worse than any jealousy. Jealousy is a fire I can control. This is a void. The thought of you being afraid in your own home, of a shadow in our garden." He rested his forehead against hers. "I will fill that void with light so bright it blinds them." He kissed her then, a kiss of promise and desperate reassurance. The next morning, Sophia awoke to find his side of the bed empty. On his pillow lay a single gardenia, its white petals pristine and fragrant. Nestled beside it was a small, black remote. Picking it up, she saw a single button. Curious, she walked to the glass wall. The garden was illuminated by the soft dawn, but something was different. She pressed the button. With a silent, seamless hum, the entire wall of glass, from floor to ceiling, transformed. The clear view shimmered and became a stunning, digital tapestry, a living mural of a vibrant Nigerian sunrise over a savanna, the colors so real she could almost feel the heat. It was a view from her homeland, a piece of her soul projected onto their fortress. Her breath caught. It was a shield, and it was a love letter. Jungwook's voice came from the doorway. "It's one way. We see the beauty. They," he said, nodding toward the hidden tree line, "see a blank, reflective titanium wall. Impenetrable. Anonymous." He came to stand beside her, looking at the digital sunrise with her. "I cannot erase the threat, Agassi. Not yet. But I can build you a world within this world where you are not afraid. Where you are surrounded by your strength, not my shadows." Sophia looked from the magnificent, artificial sunrise to the man who had orchestrated it. He had fought his nature, the impulse for a violent, definitive strike, and chosen instead a solution that honored her, that protected her spirit as well as her body. She took his hand, lacing her fingers with his. "It's beautiful," she whispered. He brought their joined hands to his lips, his eyes solemn. "They wanted to show me they could touch my heart to weaken me." He looked at their hands, then back at her, his gaze unshakable. "They have no idea they only made it harder." In that moment, Sophia understood the true depth of the man she had chosen. His love wasn't just a feeling. It was a fortress he would rebuild every single day, stone by stone, just for her. And outside, in the cold light of a Seoul morning, a man in a parked van 2 blocks away from Park Holdings frowned at his monitor. The feed from the sophisticated, long-range lens was now just a blur of shimmering, metallic gray. The window to the Pakiaryang Seoul had been closed. He picked up a secure phone. "The countermeasure is in place. Phase 1 failed." His not reacting with chaos. His fortifying. He listened, then his eyes narrowed. "Understood. We proceed to Phase 2. We don't target the fortress. We target the trust inside it." A week passed in a tense, polished calm. The digital mural became their private sunrise, a shared secret that felt like a small victory. Jungwook was different. His attentiveness had a new, sharpened edge. He wasn't just loving her. He was curating her safety, anticipating needs she didn't know she had. A new, discreet female driver named Hannah was assigned solely to her. Her access credentials now triggered silent, real-time location tracking monitored only by Kwon and Jungwook himself. It was protection that felt like its own beautiful, silent cage. The Zurich deal was concluded, the Bellerophon clause excised with surgical precision. Jungwook's victory was cold and complete, sending a clear message. Even distracted, he was lethal in his domain. Sophia, embracing her new role, suggested a philanthropic gala for his arts foundation. "It's good press," she said, laying the proposal on his desk. "And it moves in circles our shadowy photographer wouldn't dare disrupt. It's a show of normalcy, of strength." He read the proposal, then looked at her, a complex pride in his eyes. "You're learning the language of this war," he said. "Using light as a shield. Yes, we will go." The gala was at the Seoul Museum of Art. Sophia wore a gown of liquid silver, a conscious reclamation of the metal that had started it all. Jungwook, in a tuxedo that seemed cut from the night itself, was a magnet of power and respect. He never left her side, his hand a constant, warm presence on the small of her back, his eyes constantly scanning the room not for threats, but for her comfort. It was there, amidst the champagne and string quartets, that the second attack came. It was delivered by a woman. Choi Yuna, a celebrated gallery owner known for her razor-sharp wit and impeccable connections. She approached with a collector's smile, air-kissing Jungwook's cheeks. "Jungwook, you are a difficult man to get on the calendar of these days. And this must be the formidable Sophia Davis. Your reputation for brilliance precedes you." Her gaze was assessing, not jealous, but calculating. She engaged Sophia in a fluent, intelligent conversation about contemporary West African art, demonstrating a depth of knowledge that was both impressive and subtly disarming. She was everything the jealous rivals were not: sophisticated, an equal, a potential friend in this gilded world. Just as they were about to disengage, Yuna's expression softened with genuine-looking sympathy. "I heard about the dreadful business with your previous assistant. By the way, Lee Minho, was it? Such a promising talent, just vanished. It must have been so disruptive for you, Sophia." The words were perfectly weighted, dropped like a carefully polished stone into a still pond. Vanished. Not transferred, not left. Vanished. Sophia felt Jungwook's hand stiffen against her back. His smile remained, but it became a fixed, dangerous thing. "Career paths change," Sophia replied, her voice even. "I'm sure he's found his footing." "Of course," Yuna said with a light, dismissive wave. "It's just the gossip in the architectural circles. You know how it is. They whisper that crossing Park Jungwook's path can lead to a dead end. Literally." She gave a tinkling laugh, as if it were the most absurd notion. "Silly, isn't it? But perceptions are so sticky." She excused herself, melting back into the crowd, leaving behind a vapor trail of poison. The ride home was silent, but it was a different silence than before. It thrummed with a new kind of tension. The attack hadn't been on Sophia's safety, but on her peace. On the story she told herself about the man she loved. Back in the fortress, he went straight to the sidebar, pouring 2 glasses of water. He handed one to her. She was planted, he stated, his voice flat. "By who?" "It doesn't matter. The tactic is clear. They cannot reach you physically, so they will try to reach your mind. They will paint me as a monster in your eyes, using truths bent out of shape." He took a long drink, his eyes shadowed. "Minho is alive. He is in Busan, working for a reputable firm. His severance could buy a small apartment. He was not harmed." "But you ended his career here," Sophia said, the words hanging in the air. "I did." He didn't flinch from it. "I told you my love was not gentle. That was the cost of his kindness to you. A cost I levied without a second thought. Do you want the bank details? The proof of life? I can have Kwon bring it in 5 minutes." He was offering her transparency, but it felt like a test. Did she want to see the machinery of his ruthlessness up close? Sophia looked at him, this man who had just transformed a wall into a sunrise for her, who was fighting a war on 2 fronts, against an external enemy and against the monster they wanted her to see in him. "No," she said finally, setting her glass down. "I don't need the proof. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Never lie to me, even if the truth is that you did something monstrous. You look me in the eye and you tell me. Because the poison isn't in what you've done, Jungwook. It's in me hearing it from someone else, dressed in whispers and lies." He crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her face in his hands. His eyes were blazing with intensity. "I promise. No lies. Only this brutal, inconvenient, all-consuming truth." He kissed her, a kiss meant to brand the promise onto her soul. "They think they can separate us with doubt," he murmured against her lips. "They do not know that our trust is the one thing I would burn the world to protect." The next day, a courier delivered a package to the fortress, addressed to Sophia. Inside was a stunning, first-edition art book on Nigerian modernists, a note card tucked inside. The handwritten message was elegant, for our enlightening conversation. Yuna. It was a peace offering, or a Trojan horse. A reminder of a connection that existed outside of him. Jungwook looked at the book, then at Sophia. "Keep it," he said quietly. "Read it. Enjoy it. But remember, the most beautiful gifts often come with the highest price tags." He walked to his study, but paused. "And Sophia? Research Choi Yuna. Use your full access. Find her weaknesses, her debts, her secret patrons. Do not attack. Just know, if this is a war of whispers, we will become scholars of silence." He was no longer just protecting her. He was arming her, turning her intelligence, her greatest asset, into a weapon for their shared defense. The line between partner and accomplice had just faded to nothing. The art book sat on Sophia's new workstation, a sleek, beautiful anomaly. She ran her fingers over the embossed cover, a conflict brewing within her. To research Yuna felt like poisoning a potential well of genuine connection, the first she'd been offered in this rarefied world. But Jungwook's command was not born of petty jealousy. It was the cold strategy of a man under siege. The photographer had targeted her body. Yuna had targeted her mind. The next attack would be more subtle still. Her access, once overwhelming, now felt like a superpower. She began not with shadowy databases, but in the light, society pages, gallery catalogs, international art auction records. She mapped Yuna's rise, a trajectory almost too perfect. Her taste was impeccable, her timing, prescient. She had an uncanny knack for discovering artists just before their prices skyrocketed. Sophia dove deeper, cross-referencing corporate sponsorship lists with Yuna's exhibition donors. A pattern emerged, thin as a spider's silk. A particular offshore investment firm, Pontus Holdings, appeared with quiet frequency, not as a major donor, but as a consistent, mid-level backer for Yuna's more avant-garde, less commercially viable shows. The kind that built a reputation for cutting-edge taste rather than profit. Pontus Holdings had no visible assets, no public face. A ghost, like Bellerophon. A chill unrelated to the office's climate control traced her spine. She looked up. Jungwook was watching her from his desk, having given her the space to work. He saw the shift in her posture. "You found the thread," he stated. "It's thin," she cautioned. "Circumstantial. In my world, there are no coincidences, only designs." "What is the thread?" "Pontus Holdings. An offshore phantom. It's been quietly funding Yuna's credibility for years. Not to make money, but to build her influence. To place her in rooms like last night's gala." She met his gaze. They didn't just plant her there. They built her for that moment. A slow, cold satisfaction dawned on Jungwook's face. It was the look of a hunter who finally scents his prey. "Good. Now you see. This is not a rival family. This is a competitor. A corporation with a long-term strategy. They invest in assets, galleries, information brokers, socialites. Yuna is not an enemy. She is a tool. A very sharp, well-made tool." He stood and came to her side, leaning over to look at her screen. His proximity was a warm, grounding force. "Do you understand what this means? They are afraid of a direct fight. They are trying to manipulate the battlefield. To use perception, social capital, and your own intelligence against us. So what do? We do not pull the thread. Not yet." He straightened, his hand coming to rest on her shoulder, a heavy, reassuring weight. "We follow it. We learn the entire pattern. And we become patrons of Choi Yuna." Sophia blinked. "What?" "We will become her most enthusiastic supporters. We will buy from her gallery. We will attend her openings. We will flatter her ego and fund her ambitions." A razor smile touched his lips. "If she is a conduit to our enemy, then we will use that conduit. We will pour our resources into it until it belongs to us, or until it bursts and shows us the source." It was a move of breathtaking audacity. To embrace the threat, to disarm it with apparent generosity. It was a strategy of love turned into a tactical siege. That weekend, They attended the opening of Yuna's new exhibition, Fragile Sovereignties. The centerpiece was a stunning sculpture by a diasporic Nigerian artist. A globe woven from discarded phone cards and copper wire, beautiful and precarious. Jungwook, with Sophia on his arm, didn't just buy it. He purchased the entire series, a sum that made even the jaded art crowd gasp. Yuna was all polished delight, but Sophia, now a scholar of her silences, saw the flicker of unease in her eyes. The tool was being used in a way its makers had not intended. "You are too generous, Jungwook," Yuna demurred. "Nonsense," he replied, his arm tightening around Sophia. "My fiancé has a profound connection to the themes. It moves her. Therefore, it is priceless." The word fiancé hung in the air, a landed grenade. Sophia felt his fingers squeeze hers, a silent signal. This was part of the play. A declaration of permanence to their enemy, a new fact on the battlefield. Later, in the car, Sophia was quiet. "Fiancé?" she finally asked. He looked out the window, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes. "Too much. It's a powerful claim." "It is the truth," he said, turning to her. "In every way that matters. I am bound to you, Sophia. I am merely announcing it to the wolves so they understand the territory is no longer contested. It is occupied. Permanently." He wasn't asking. He was telling. And in his absolute certainty, she felt not confinement, but a dizzying, terrifying security. The following Tuesday, a hand-delivered invitation arrived at the fortress. An exclusive, week-long contemporary art summit on Jeju Island, hosted by a European consortium. Yuna's name was on the host committee. The note, again in her elegant hand, was addressed to Sophia personally. "Your insights would be invaluable. A chance to connect with a global circle of thinkers. I do hope you can attend." It was the obvious next move. Isolate the asset. Separate her from her protector. Jungwook read the invitation, his face impassive. "It's a trap. A beautiful, intellectual trap." "I know," Sophia said. "And you want to go." She took a deep breath. "They think I'm your weakness. A thing to be shielded. They think they can pluck me from my gilded cage and unravel me with whispers. Let them try. I am not a prize to be stolen, Jungwook. I am the negotiator. Let me negotiate." He stared at her for a long, tense minute, a war raging behind his eyes. The possessive lover versus the strategic partner. The partner won, but at a cost. He looked ravaged. "You will have Kwon. And Hannah. You will have a panic button linked directly to me. You will check in 3 times a day." His voice was gravel. "And if you feel a single shadow of doubt, you blink and I will be there, and the consequences will be biblical." It was a concession of monumental trust. He was letting his heart walk into the lion's den, armed only with her mind and his remote wrath. Sophia reached for him, her hand cupping his jaw. "I will come back to you. With more than just my safety." He turned his face into her palm, closing his eyes. "You are my heart, walking outside my body," he whispered, the vulnerability stark and terrifying. "Do not make me regret giving it wings." The decision was made. Sophia would go to Jeju. The fortress, for the first time, would be empty of her. And Jungwook would be left alone with his silence, his fear, and the cold, waiting thread of a phantom enemy. Jeju Island was a dream of mist and ocean, but its beauty felt distant, a backdrop to a test Sophia had already passed. After her quiet defiance at the dinner, a palpable shift occurred. Yuna's polished warmth turned brittle. Elias's clever conversations ceased. They saw not a target, but a sovereign. The trap had sprung empty. She cut the summit short. There was only one place she needed to be. The flight back to Seoul was a cocoon of quiet anticipation. Kwon and Hannah's usual vigilant silence now held a new, deep-seated respect. They had not just protected her. They had witnessed her claim her power. The car did not go to the office. It drove straight to the fortress in the hills. As the gates slid open, Sophia saw the transformation immediately. The imposing, Titanium-clad walls were now softly illuminated by countless warm, golden lights, like fireflies caught in the dusk. The stark modern compound was wrapped in an unexpected, welcoming glow. Jungwook was not waiting inside. He stood alone at the front entrance, under the arched doorway. He wore a simple black sweater and trousers, no suit, no armor. The wind ruffled his hair. He looked younger and utterly exposed. The car stopped. Sophia stepped out, the evening air cool on her skin. For a long moment, they just looked at each other across the polished stone driveway. The strategist returned from the field, and the king who had waited, trusting her to return. He closed the distance first. His hands came up to cradle her face, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that stripped away every pretense. "You're unharmed," he murmured, the words a prayer. "I'm home," she replied, her hands covering his. He pulled her into an embrace so tight it stole her breath, burying his face in her hair. She felt the fine tremor that ran through him, the colossal weight of fear he had shouldered in her absence. He didn't speak of strategies or enemies. He simply held her, as if reaffirming her reality. "Come," he said finally, his voice thick. He took her hand and led her not into the main house, but around the side, along a new path of glowing lanterns she'd never seen. It led to a secluded part of the garden, hidden from all sightlines. There, he had built something. A pavilion of glass and reclaimed wood, open on one side to a view of the city lights shimmering far below like a spilled galaxy. Inside, a low table held simple food, her favorite Nigerian dishes, painstakingly recreated, next to traditional Korean comforts. 2 floor cushions sat side by side. "No staff, no security feeds here," he said softly. "Just us. This place, it didn't exist before. I had it built this week. For you. For us. A place with no past, only our future." It was his ultimate confession. Not just sharing his fortress, but building a new sanctuary within it, solely for their peace. They ate, talking not of Pontus or Yuna, but of small things. The art she'd seen, the absurdity of summit canapes, the way the garden light caught the dew. He listened with rapt attention, as if cataloguing each detail to fill the silent hollow her absence had carved in him. After, they sat on the edge of the pavilion, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her, watching the night. The jealous, volatile boss was gone. In his place was a man quieted by love, by the profound relief of having his entire world back, safe in his arms. "When I saw you on that terrace," he said into her hair, his voice a low rumble against her, "when you didn't press the button, I have never been more terrified, or more proud. You faced down the whisperers with their own weapons and you won. Not for me. For us." She leaned into him. "They thought they could make me doubt you. All they did was make me sure. I don't want an empire of my own, Jungwook. I want our life. This one. With the fortified walls and the secret gardens. With the complexity and the danger and this relentless peace I only find with you." He turned her in his arms then, his eyes glistening in the starlight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Not the typical ring box. He opened it. Inside, on a bed of black silk, lay 2 simple, perfect bands of polished platinum. No jewels. Just solid, unbroken circles. "I had these made the day after you left," he said, his gaze locked on hers. "Not a claim. Not a brand. A covenant. Equal, unending. A promise that I am yours, as you are mine. No titles, no territories. Just this." He took her left hand, his own trembling slightly. "Sophia Davis, my counterpart, my only equal. Will you build this unpredictable, beautiful, guarded life with me? Will you marry me?" Tears, happy and profound, spilled down her cheeks. This was the culmination of everything, from the jealous question about a bracelet to this moment of absolute, equal partnership. "Yes," she whispered, the word carrying the weight of all her courage and love. 1,000 times, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit. She took the other and did the same for him. The metal was cool, then warm. A completed circuit. He kissed her then, under the vast Korean sky, with the city he once ruled alone sparkling below. The kiss held no desperation, no fear. It was a seal, a promise of mornings shared, of challenges faced side by side, of a love that was no longer a secret to be protected, but a truth to be lived. The threats hadn't vanished. The shadows still lingered at the edges of their world. But as they walked back to the fortress, hand in hand, rings gleaming under the lantern light, it no longer felt like a cage. It felt like a harbor. Theirs. Because the greatest victory wasn't over external enemies. It was the peace they had forged, against all odds, within the walls. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, like, share, and follow for more amazing videos.